All right, Hewlett-Packard crossing just moments ago. Courtney's back to give us more details on their report.
Well, this could be a turnaround time for Hewlett-Packard. We saw earnings per share coming in at 91 cents a share. Analysts were expecting 90 cents a share. Sales coming in at $27.5 billion. Analysts were expecting $27.3 billion, so coming in line with estimates. Also, for the quarter, they predicted their fourth quarter sales. They're saying fourth quarter sales is expected EPS to come in at $1.12. Analysts were expecting $1.06. One of the things that Mark Hurd, he's the CEO of Hewlett-Packard, and he said one important thing. He said business is stabilizing. Last week we heard Moody's upgraded the hardware industry. Also, a lot of analysts out there that we've been talking to, they say that things are turning around in the PC sector, that the fear factor from the economy has been dropping. So people are going back in and they're going and buying PCs. Also, Gartner and IDC, they said PC sales showed signs of bottoming out the last quarter. Another thing, too, they said the reason behind their sales is this efficient cost structure that they've been developing. As you know, CEO Mark Hurd, he's been cutting costs, he's been cutting jobs, and he's also been cutting salaries down. Matt.
All right, Courtney, thanks very much for that. Now, for more on Hewlett-Packard's results, we are joined by Rob Enderle, principal analyst at the Enderle Group. He is in Mountain View, California. And Pete Sorrentino, senior portfolio manager at Huntington Asset Advisors in Cincinnati, Ohio. Pete helps manage $13.8 billion, including nearly 1.5 million shares of Hewlett-Packard, worth about $64 million. Pete, let me start with you. What do you think of the results here? I mean, better than expected, both on the top and the bottom.
Matt, that's a real change from what we've seen with a lot of the tech companies. It's definitely a positive. The fact that they were able to deliver the top line growth, even though it's just slightly better. A lot of people have been delivering the bottom line but missing the top. So this is good news. It also means that Hurd's strategy is working, and it's encouraging. It's a good data point. I think you can be cautiously optimistic on this going forward.
What about you, Rob? I mean, do you think you can be cautiously optimistic going forward? Do you think that we've reached, as Courtney suggested, maybe a turnaround point for Hewlett-Packard?
Well, Hewlett-Packard is a broad spectrum company. In other words, they have a lot of contract revenue, and they actually have a lot of consumer revenue as well. And overall, the performance has been pretty good, but their outlook is actually pretty phenomenal. I think this is indicating that the market may, in fact, have bottomed, and we're starting to see a recovery because the coming weeks and months actually look a lot better, particularly on the transactional consumer side as Windows 7 moves to market. So this is actually really good news, actually quite a bit better news than I was expecting this quarter.
Peter and Rob, let me ask you, though, this is a company that's been cutting jobs, slashing salaries. I mean, they've been pretty aggressive here, cutting operating costs. I mean, is this a sustainable strategy in your view? Peter, let me start with you.
Carol, no, it's not. No, Mark Hurd is good at this. This is his forte. What they've got to get to really double their margin, because that's what they have to do. Their margin is basically half that of IBM, and they want to be IBM. That's why they bought EDS. They've got to grow the top line here, and they've got to make it a meaningful part of their business, because that's where the margin is going to come from. It's been easy the last couple of years because Dell's been flat on their back. They took the business back from them over the last 3 years. Well, Dell's getting up off the mat, and they've got to get themselves extricated from hardware and move to services pretty quickly, because that's going to become a much tougher street fight going forward.
Rob, what do you weigh? Oh, I'm sorry. Rob, what do you weigh in on that?
Well, I think the weakness, if they really want to increase margins, the weakness at Hewlett-Packard is software, which actually saw a decline this quarter. Software is the big margin generator, and that's where IBM has been particularly strong, as in their software unit. So if there is some weakness in Hewlett-Packard, it's on the software side. Hewlett-Packard is largely a hardware services company, where IBM is largely a software services company, and that's probably where the big difference in margins is right now.
Let me ask, speaking of sustainable, Rob, you mentioned Windows 7 kind of helping to provide, hopefully, I guess, a blockbuster quarter next quarter. Is that sustainable, or do we see a short-term bump here? Or is this a much bigger deal because of the size of this product?
Well, it's an incredibly large deal. This is the first time Microsoft has rolled the market not only with a large marketing budget, but with a marketing team that's actually been hired out of agency. So this is the most powerful rollout they've ever had. The market's been waiting for this product because Windows Vista did so poorly. So we could actually get a double bounce out of this. The entire PC industry, though, is waiting with bated breath to see if this thing goes. If it doesn't, it's going to be a disaster. Right now, all the reviews have been generally good. The marketing team looks solid. I did a review on them last week. It looks like this is going to be a hit. Now it all depends on the economy and whether or not buyers come back and are willing to buy.
So, Peter, what do you think when you look at the HP picture? I mean, what are they doing so right? What are they doing wrong in this environment?
They've actually been really doing an excellent job on the balance sheet management side. They've been bringing in costs, reducing inventory. They have been focusing on really getting their arms around the EDS thing as quickly as possible and trying to bring that into the fore to make that deliver for them as it needs to be. I mean, if they're going to play in IBM's sandbox, they've got to be able to have the same tools. So it's getting there. Hurd's very good in terms of just doing systematic, execution, just basic blocking and tackling. And that, if they just keep focused, because I said, IBM, Lenovo are out there gunning for them on the low-end hardware side. So it is going to be tough on the corporate front when it comes down to replacing PCs this cycle.
Rob, let me throw out a few other numbers. They've got third quarter personal systems group revenue down 18%. Notebook, PSG notebook revenue down 10%, desktop revenue down 26%. Some more numbers. Software revenue down 22%. Help me make sense out of what's key here in terms of these numbers. Obviously a downward trend.
Well, right now, with regard to PCs, what we're seeing is they're drawing down on inventories, getting ready for the Windows 7 launch, and that's expected right now. I'm not surprised that the PC revenues are off. I'm a little surprised that software is off, however, because IBM software numbers have been pretty good. And so that's indicative of an unusual weakness, I think, in Hewlett-Packard. And it's that software number that probably would be a heck of a margin generator if it had been better.
Rob, let me ask you how much the netbook trend is going to help. I mean, it's really started to come on in terms of marketing. People can use these things like phones and like laptops at the same time. Is this going to be huge for American consumers?
Well, it certainly was last Christmas. As we go into the fourth quarter, netbooks kind of fall in that price range that people get excited about. Plus, they're getting ever more capable. They're throwing in graphics like the NVIDIA Ion stuff is going into a lot of them. So they're actually getting a lot more capable, a lot more exciting as a result. So I do think that's going to be one of the hot categories in our calendar fourth quarter.
Hey, Peter, you guys own a bunch of shares. Huntington Asset Advisors does. Anything in this report to either add to your position or to possibly sell here?
No, at this point, we're going to hold. If we can see some continuation of the trend, we may get a little more excited about the stock. But as I said, it seems to be stalling out here. It had a great run for a number of years, and it may just be up against a kind of a wait-and-see approach from us and other investors. We really want to see it deliver before we get more aggressive. So right now, we're going to hold. If it doesn't come through, we'll probably look to lighten. All
right, guys, we got to run. Peter Sorrentino of Huntington Asset Advisors and Rob Enderle of Enderle Group. Thanks so much, guys, for breaking it down.